Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a review of a reissue of a couple of performances that some people will find quite exciting. I am not one of them. The performances in question are Herbert Blomstedt with the Staatskapelle Dresden doing Bruckner Symphonies 4 and 7. Now, I remember as well as anybody does when these things came out, because first of all, it was in the early days of CD. And people who were buying CDs would grab anything they could get their hands on. And Denon was, of course, one of the very earliest labels to make digital recordings. And they had these. And so everyone got them. But the fact of the matter is, they're rather boring. They are quite plain Jane, as I say in the title of this video. Just absolutely uninteresting performances. And that's very fascinating because Blomstedt could do wonderful stuff. Blomstedt did a great Beethoven cycle in Dresden, he did a great Schubert cycle in Dresden, he did some beautiful Dvorak in Dresden. It was very clear, let's put it this way, from an early stage, what he was good at. And what he was good at was the standard German repertoire that required some sort of sophistication in terms of balance and accent and long-range planning. In other words, music in the sonata style. He had a real feel for it. So many conductors these days don't, but Blomstedt does. He really has a sense of it, most of the time anyway. Yeah. But Blomstedt was also an extremely unflashy conductor. He wanted to let the music speak for itself. He always emphasized, most of the time anyway, just sort of basic musical values, which I think are always, usually it's a good thing to do. Better than not having basic musical values, for sure. But Bruckner is a little weirder than that, as we know. Bruckner's style does not necessarily benefit from people trying to play it like, for example, Beethoven, or Mozart, or even Schubert, for that matter. Bruckner is Bruckner. And Bruckner needs some serious personality behind it to stiffen its formal spine. And you get that. You get that in conductors as different as Karajan and Joachim and Celibidache, the crazy Celibidache, whatever his name is. And, you know, it needs something to put it over in a positive sense, not to just stand by and let it happen. And these are two stand by and let it happen performances. And in Bruckner, as we all know, if you just stand by and let it happen, nothing happens. And nothing happens in these performances. They are well played. They are not well recorded. You know, these early digital recordings, I've seen some comments when talking about Blomstedt, and because now, of course, he is the grand old man of music. But he wasn't always. He was young once, and he was pretty mediocre as often as not when he was young. He did some things wonderfully and some things not so wonderfully, just like the rest of us. So you know, and the comments were like, oh, I can't wait to get these. These were fabulous. They're wonderful, and they sound so great. No, they don't. The sound is rather dull. Really, it's especially missing brilliance or brightness on top. And that was true of a lot of early digital recordings. They seem to be cut off in the high frequencies. That's the case here. It's a little bit murky, cloudy even at times. And the performances themselves, they just have no character. They don't pop out for any particular reason. There's nothing terribly wrong with them. They are always sensible, but they're sensible in a way that's boring. It's like, you know, sensible shoes. They're just not very interesting. They're comfortable. They're comfortable performances. I mean, the Seventh Symphony, you know, is, of course, missing the cymbal crash and timpani. That's okay. That doesn't make any difference. I'm just pointing that out. But, I mean, the first movement, the coda of the first movement, that glorious coda, you know, Blomstedt basically rushes through it as if absolutely nothing interesting is going on. And the Fourth Symphony, the scherzo with the brilliant horns and the brass, they're all buried in string tremolos. I mean, so it goes. There are wonderful moments that you should highlight. And Blomstedt simply pushes right through them, as if, nothing terribly important is happening. And the result is two extremely average, not terribly interesting performances. And I have to be very frank about this. Blomstedt is not a great Bruckner conductor. He never was. He did a good ninth with the Gewandhaus that was on Decca. He did. And he did a fourth in San Francisco that's not bad, but not one of the great fourths, and a sixth that's also not bad, but not one of the great sixths. I mean, they're good. They're solid. They're all solid, but they're not going to, I mean, he's no Gunter Wand, for example, if you want to talk about a great Bruckner conductor. It's just not the way he operates. And his cycle with the Gewandhaus, they released a whole box of all the Bruckner symphonies, is one of the dullest things I've ever heard in my life, and it's a very expensive dull thing in addition. So I know some of you folks love it, but those of you who love these, I really, really urge you to listen to others. Listen to this seventh and compare it to the Joachim seventh with the same orchestra. There's no comparison. No comparison at all in terms of the sheer charisma imparted to the music by these two conductors. There's just, I mean, for me, it's obvious. And, it may not be for you. And, of course, everyone's entitled to like what they like. But the fact of the matter is you can do much better than these two Bruckners. And don't let anybody tell you, now that they're back, that, they're like legendary, wonderful. They were never legendary and wonderful. They weren't. Even when they came out, most people found them to be somewhat pale and uninteresting. Now, I know there are some people who love them. If somebody loves everything, I've always said that. Women go up to jail and marry serial killers. I mean, there's a taste for everything. And there is a taste for rather colorless, dreary Bruckner. But it ain't mine, and I don't think it's yours, because if you do careful comparative listening, you will notice the difference right away. So do keep on listening, friends, but you don't need these. You really don't. Thank you for joining me. Take care.